While Syria burns and Libya teeters, civilians are bearing the brunt of another Arab world civil war. The rest of the planet largely indifferent to the plight of Yemen until two events in the past week. First, the weekend Saudi-led airstrike against a funeral wake in the capital that left 142 dead. And now, the U.S. retaliating against the targeting of its navy in the Red Sea with strikes of its own against suspected bases of Iran-aligned Houthi militias. The Houthis and forces loyal to former President Saleh deny responsibility for the attacks, but the Pentagon is not buying it. Is Washington now getting drawn further into a conflict where it had been expressing growing doubts over its logistical support for the Saudi-led campaign? Is this the West's fight? Well, part of the answer is that it's a three-way battle at least, with long-established jihadists setting up in remote areas of the region's poorest country. One of the Charlie Hebdo attackers trained in Yemen. The West can only ignore the conflict at its own peril. But it's also about the citizens of this country, who make up 2/3 of the casualties. How to reconcile Yemenites and get regional powers to take their rivalries elsewhere. Today in the France 24 debate, and then there's Yemen. With us to talk about it, Yemeni journalist Afran Nasser, who joins us from Gothenburg in Sweden. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
From Sana'a, he's a Houthi activist. Ali Mohammed al-Sharai is with us. Welcome to the show. From Washington, we'll be joined by a former political analyst at the Saudi Embassy, Fahad Nazer of Risk Consultants, JTG. And with us here in the studio, former U.S. diplomat William Jordan. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Now, it was the second time in 4 days that missiles had been fired at U.S. warships off the coast. This time, there was a response. Shirley Sitbon has more.
U.S. destroyer Nitsi launches cruise missiles. Their target, Houthi radars they want to destroy. The Pentagon says the rebels used the radars to attack U.S. ships off Yemen, something Washington will not accept.
These limited self-defense strikes were conducted to protect our personnel, our ships, and our freedom of navigation in this important maritime passageway.
Houthi leaders deny ever attacking U.S. ships, but they are increasingly angered by Washington's support of the Saudi-led war against them. The Saudi Arab coalition wants to push the rebels back and bring their ally, President Mansour Hadi, to power in Sana'a. The rebels, supported by Iran, have taken over much of the country, forcing President Hadi to flee. The U.S. brings the Arab coalition intelligence, logistics support, and advanced weapons. The ongoing conflict and deadly airstrikes are increasingly criticized. 2/3 of the victims are believed to be civilians. On Saturday, the coalition hit a funeral home, killing more than 140 people, bringing strong international condemnation. The Houthis accuse the U.S. of being responsible.
These acts of aggression are ordered from Washington before Riyadh.
In Washington, the State Department said that following the attack on the funeral home, it will review the support it brings to the Arab coalition.
Reviewing the support it brings. We're going to talk about that point later. First, though, let's get a handle on what exactly happened with for the first time, the U.S. firing missiles at Yemeni soil. Now, it took place, according to shipping sources, that the areas hit, they told the Reuters news agency, were in the Dubab district of Taiz province. That's a remote area overlooking the Bab al-Mandab Strait, an area that is known for fishing and smuggling. If you look at the map, it is a strategic point, the entrance there to the Red Sea. What does that tell you, Afran Nasser, about what exactly happened, and what do you make of the denial by the Houthis that it was them?
Well, the territory that you just explained now, it's really under the control of the Hadi government and the legitimate government. So for Saleh and Houthi to deny that they were, like firing any strikes against the U.S. ship. For me, it's very understandable. But at the same time, everyone is really left baffled because at the moment there are two statements from Saleh and Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the rebel group head. Both of them issued a statement, and they took the chance of that. Tomorrow it is the annual anniversary of the 14th of October revolution against the British colony in '63. And both of them again denied that they fired anything against the U.S. ship. But I think what is very important to understand, like the whole context of this escalation came really days after, like an apparent war crime committed in the middle of Sana'a. And even at the same time, Taiz were being bombed and shelled by Saleh and Houthi forces. So there is a mounting war crimes in this war that it's entering. Or almost
if it's not the Houthis who did it, who else could have plausibly done this?
That remains to be seen, really. There is no anyone that took responsibility so far, but what could be really understandable that there is some warring parties trying to cover up the war crimes committed. The latest one, the attack on the funeral hall, really not only shook Yemenis to their core, but even make like a worldwide uproar against the war crimes in Yemen. So definitely there is some kind of camouflage being made just to hide that crime. And who is the responsible of the recent escalation? I believe it's it's still unconfirmed or uncertain.
William Jordan, what have you been able to piece together from what you've seen?
Well, I actually agree with the commentator in Gothenburg. I think that despite the news media's tendency to jump to the conclusion that it's the Houthis who did this, I think it remains to be determined exactly who had and fired these missiles. I mean,
medium-range missiles.
Well, cruise missiles, yeah, at least of a range to get out about 25 or 30 nautical miles. And the two incidents involving American warships were preceded by an attack on a United Arab Emirates vessel, in the same basic region. I mean, I think from the American point of view, there are two aspects of this. One is, as was stated, in the report prior to the beginning of the debate, the U.S. government sees this obviously as a direct threat against American warships, but it's also a threat to international shipping. And this is something that would obviously concern the entire international community because that is, as you pointed out, the Bab el-Mandab is one of the most heavily frequented areas because it's the major choke point that leads into the Red Sea and out into the Arabian Sea. It is vital to international shipping. If you have anybody on the coast of Yemen firing missiles at ships, and what remains to be determined, in my view, is why did these people know they were firing on an American warship, or did they think they might have been firing on a coalition warship? Did they think they might have been firing on a warship of some other nationality?
Well, what the Pentagon spokesperson said was that on the Sunday they could perhaps give him a little bit the benefit of the doubt, but not the second time on the Wednesday.
And that's exactly why the U.S. would have struck back, was to make the point that this is just not on, whether it's to an American vessel or not. I mean, obviously, in the first instance, it's because it's an American warship. And for Americans, U.S. warships being attacked in Yemeni waters raises the specter of the attack on the Cole in 2000. And so, I mean, in fact, the first time I heard about this, my initial thought was, well, what exactly is going on here? Are we seeing something similar to that? But as was
the USS Cole, which was attacked by Al Qaeda,
right, in the port of Aden when it was making a visit, under completely different circumstances.
Ali Mohammed al-Sharai, if it's not the Houthis who did it, who done it?
First of all, I want to make sure that it happened at first. It's not, I'm not sure that it happened. And for me, the coalition themselves, they had attacked each other in many events or accidents, if they can call them accidents. I know that the Saudi Navy attacked the Emirati operations room there in Aden, and this can happen, and this may have happened. And what I'm sure of that.
So you're saying that the attack of that Emirati ship was done by the Saudis, not by the Houthi militias?
What I'm sure of that the Yemeni army and the Ansarullah, what we call al-Houthis, they do not deny anything they did. They are always proud of what they do. They cannot deny anything, and they do not deny what they do, what they did. They are not afraid of that. If this warship was in the Yemeni water, they have the right to attack it in their belief. But what I'm sure of that, since they denied that, they did not do it. I'm sure of that, and this is my belief, because I know them very well. I know the Yemeni army do not deny anything, and the Yemeni Houthis, what do you call them, Houthis, Ansarullah, never deny what they do.
You're saying they're true to their word. William Jordan, one final question on this. The Iranian media reporting that two Iranian warships are accompanying right now vessels. They set off on October the 5th, according to one semi-official news agency. They're in the area as well. We think of the Strait of Hormuz on the other side as being the very volatile place. What is it? 1/3 of the world's oil, I believe, goes through there. But again, I want to emphasize this point. This entrance to the Red Sea, could it also be that as volatile?
Well, first of all, let's remember, this isn't the first time that the Iranians have sent warships to the waters around Yemen. Back, I can't remember exactly when it was, but sometime within the last year or so, when the coalition, the Saudi-led coalition, was instituting some kind of a blockade with the idea of trying to prevent Iranian missiles and equipment from getting into the Houthis. The Iranians made a point of showing some strength in the area in a naval presence. They sent some ships down there. There wasn't very much said about it after that, but for the Iranians, I think they see an opportunity here to sort of, if in fact the feeling is that it's the Houthis, and if in fact one accepts the premise, which I have some issues with, but we'll talk about that I'm sure later, that the Houthis are very closely aligned with the Iranians. The Iranians would see an interest in wanting to establish some kind of a presence. And remember, the main reason why this entrance to the Red Sea is so important is because beyond that you have the Suez Canal, which is a major artery for international
the gateway
commerce,
to Europe.
the gateway to Europe, and vice versa, the gateway from Europe into Asia and Eastern Africa. So, I mean, one thing I do want to stress is that although I said earlier that I agree that the actual perpetrators of this attack or these attacks have yet to be determined, the Houthis have always made very clear publicly that they consider the United States one of their enemies or one of the foes in the battle that they are waging against the sort of the established order, and I think that, as there is some concern in Washington about the degree to which the Houthis have some sort of a ever-growing relationship with Iran and with Iranian proxies like Hezbollah, naturally, as Washington looks at who's likely to have carried this out, they're going to be looking at not only who they think did it according to the evidence, but they're also going to be looking at who actually has the greater motivation to be attacking a U.S. warship.
Ali Mohammed al-Sharai, how actively are Iran and Hezbollah helping the Houthis?
maybe your guest there has talked now just about the blockade and the siege against Yemen, which is a completely siege that no one can help Yemenis now, and no one can support and help in our situation. What Iran and Hezbollah are just excuses for this coalition, which for attacking Yemen, and it's not a good excuse actually. It's pardon me, but I'll say that it's a stupid excuse, because the Saudis are fighting Iran there in Yemen, and with a very simple looking at the map, they can see that Iran is exactly the other direction, not there in the south of Saudi Arabia. It's there on the east and north.
All right, so you're denying that the active help there.
There in Yemen.
Denying the active help there. I want to get the reaction of Afra Nasser on this, but we're going to have to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching the France 24.